Hey everybody, this is Carlos. Thanks for joining us. On today's show, we're going to be speaking with Dave Palumbo of Serpents University and Palumbo's Boas and Pythons. Dave is a top-notch boa breeder focusing on many cutting-edge morphs, including the Labyrinth, Sterling, and Scoria projects. We're going to talk about his life as a professional bodybuilder and how he got involved in the boa game, along with what his plans are for the upcoming season. Finally, we're going to talk about the importance of establishing a social media platform. Boa Rack Radio is on the air now. Welcome everybody to Boa Rack Radio. I'm your host, Carlos Rojas of Morse Unleashed. Today our guest is Dave Palumbo. Based out of Florida, Dave is well known for his cutting-edge work with many boa morphs, including being one of the first people to produce a super hypo crystal boa. He's also a former professional bodybuilder, the founder of RX Muscle, and the host of a popular YouTube channel, Serpents University. Dave, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome, man. So I'm really glad to get you on, man. I've been following your bodybuilding career and been following, what you've been doing kind of on the business side with the supplements stuff for quite a while, man. But more importantly, I've been really, really impressed by some of the work you've been doing, not only with the animals you've been producing, but some of the social media work that you've been doing, like on YouTube within Serpents University. So I've been really, really looking forward to getting you on and getting a chance to chat with you. So for those people that don't know your background, kind of give us your background and how you got started with reptiles, and then kind of go into how you got interested in boas.
It's a weird like thing, because first of all, I'm like an absolute lunatic perfectionist. Like, immerse yourself and learn everything that possibly is about whatever you're interested in. That's like, and I'm sure a lot of us are like that.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah. So, for me, I never think I'm doing enough for this as far as the snake stuff goes, because I just don't have enough time. Like, normally, I'm a guy who was in the bodybuilding world, and I immersed myself in that like 1,000%. And, I built this RX Muscle YouTube channel and the rxmuscle.com website and my nutrition company because I was just like selfishly immersed in it. I didn't have any kids. I didn't, I was like just a single guy, and I got married like in 14. I met my wife, and we started having kids in 16, and all that changed. Like, all of a sudden I have like, it's like I was a guy who slept like 9 hours a night, because for bodybuilding, you want to be able to recover. And now I'm sleeping 4 hours, and I still don't have enough time to do everything I need to do. So for me, when you tell me like, oh, you love the channel and all the social media, I'm like doing like a fraction of what I would normally do for it, but I appreciate that.
That's funny, man.
Yeah. So I do. I'm like, like I said, I'm half-assed at it a little bit in terms of my own, what I hold, the standards I hold myself up to. But needless to say, so I got involved. I was actually, believe it or not, I was in school to become a doctor.
Oh wow!
I went to 4 years of college at Franklin and Marshall College, and then I went to 3. I got into medical school in New York in Westchester. I went there for 3 years, and I dropped out. And it's funny because before I went to college, I think it was either I think it was the year before I went, right after high school. I had a job in like probably my only real job in my entire life, and I'm 52 now. I'm proud to say that I never had a real job except this one job in Petland Discounts, because I was into animals. I had 1 million fish tanks as a kid. I had hamsters and birds, and I didn't really have any reptiles until I started working in this store. And there was a bunch of like guys like with long hair, that was like the thing. All the reptile guys had like long hair, like heavy metal guys, smoked a lot of pot. And I was like, kind of a straight-laced guy going, I'm going to college next year. And these guys probably, barely graduated high school. And so I'm hanging out with these guys in the store, and I loved working there. All we did was clean shit and, and fish tanks, and but there was reptiles there, and these guys introduced me to snakes. And I remember this one guy, Vinny, he knew all the Latin names to all the snakes and reptiles, and I was like, I felt inadequate around these guys because I didn't know. I was like a fish guy, but it was fascinating to me. So I started learning all this, and I would study the books and stuff like that, and read all these, anything I could get my hands on. Because remember, there was no internet back in the 80s.
Right.
So needless to say, the one guy, Vinny, used to invite me over to his house and show me all the snakes he had. He had like some, back then everyone had one of everything, like, a boa, a Burmese python or reticulated python. These guys had even had some venomous stuff at the time. And I got into it to the point where before I went to college, I actually bought a Burmese python baby and I brought it with me. That was my first snake. I loved this. The thing was great, you know. I didn't know what I was doing. I had like a hot rock, you know, in the tank. You know, I just
we were all there, dude.
Yeah. The museum at my college actually had a reticulated python there. There was like a wild caught thing. It was like the nastiest thing. But they used to breed mice there, so I used to get my mice for free from them, and it was cool. You know, I did that for a couple of years in college, and then I got into medical school and went to medical school, and I got really immersed in the bodybuilding world. So much so that I actually dropped out of medical school, believe it or not. Took a year off and I started making really good money in bodybuilding because I had like a really good background. I was writing for the magazines, you know, because I had a science background and all that stuff. And so flash forward, you know, I got into the whole bodybuilding world. I became like pretty well known. You know, I was one of the biggest guys out there. You know, I became one of the guys, the information providers. I did seminars and guest appearances all over the place, and you know, I lived the whole bodybuilding, you know, crazy lifestyle, and I loved it. And at some point, I started doing RX Muscle, which was like a media website, and I had a radio show every week. I still have it. It's called Heavy Muscle Radio. It's a podcast. And I was talking about when I had my snake and how I missed it, and I really hadn't had a snake. And a friend of mine, I didn't even know he bred ball pythons. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to bring you over an egg in an incubator." And he gave me an egg in the incubator 2010, and it hatched, and I put it on my channel. I was like, you know, it was like the coolest thing. It was a regular ball python, but it was the first snake I had. I never even had a captive hatched snake because back then everything was wild caught. And so I started getting into ball pythons now. And I started saying, he started showing me all the different colors. And I'm like, they have colors? You know how the first time you hear about this, it's like, what? Albinos? Holy shit. I have to get some of this. And so I went to started going to reptile. I went to a reptile show, I remember, and I was hooked. You know, I bought like a normal, I think I bought an albino there. And then I started looking into boas. And I'm like, I bought the book, the complete, you know, Boa Constrictor by Vin Russo. You know, and everyone, you remember when you read that book, right?
Oh, it was absolutely, man.
It was like the Bible you read, you know. I was like, holy shit. And then a friend of mine said, you know, I was telling him about I read the book, and I bought, I think, an albino online somewhere. I bought like a sun glow. My friend's like, you should really contact Vin Russo. You know, I said, he's on Long Island? He's like, yeah, he lives on Long Island. You could probably go buy some snakes from him. But, you know, Vin doesn't let anyone come to his house or anything like that, or his facility. So I'd contacted him via email. And he's like, you know, I'll be at White Plains Reptile Center, Reptile Show. Why don't you meet me there? You can take a look at some of the snakes I have. I said, all right, fine, whatever. I kind of blew him off. So I went there with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We brought a camera. You know, I started interviewing people at these shows. I started my Muscle Serpents University challenge. I'm like, I'm going to do this the right way with social media. So I go there and I'm walking around and I'm interviewing people. And, you know, I don't know that much about reptiles at this point. I'm just really getting into it. But I know how to interview people because I can ask people questions. This is what I do, right? So right when we're leaving, we're exhausted. You know, we're there for a couple of hours. I walk past this table and this guy yells out, "Hey, I know you." I turn around. And I see Cutting Edge Herps, and that's Vin Russo's table. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot he was here. I didn't. He's like, no, I know you. I said, oh, what do you know from bodybuilding? I said, you're Vin Russo, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, I know you. I said, how do you know me? He goes, we worked together at Petland Discounts.
That's hilarious, man.
In 1986, you had a Pontiac Grand Prix T-tops. Remember, you used to come over to my house. I'm like, you're Vinny? The long-haired guy? That was Vin Russo. So Vin Russo and I worked 30 years ago together at Petland Discounts. Didn't know that he became Vin Russo. And we became friends after that. And, you know, I bought a bunch of snakes from him, and I bought a bunch of his blood boa stuff. And I bought some ball pythons from him, some, you know, caramellos, which are the caramel and the ultramel combined. I bought some, like, you know, some cool stuff that he had. I bought my Het Sterlings, my Russo Red Pastel Het Sterlings from him, which I just did a video on them today, obviously. Funny enough, the females grab it again, full of babies again. And ironically, I actually produced Russo Red Pastel Hypo Sterlings before he did.
That's funny.
I bought this because when he produced the hets, because he had taken a Sterling and he had bred it to his Russo Red line of boas and produced Het Sterlings that were Russo Red Pastel. I guess he sold some and Calgary kept the best ones that he felt were the best ones. And then I bought a pair, and I think mine bred the year before his did. So it was pretty funny. It was ironic that, here I am, Vin Russo, that I produced the first Russo Red Pastel Hypo. I think mine's actually Super Hypo Sterling. And I produced a bunch of them. I sold a couple, kept a few. And now they're breeding, actually, ironically enough. So, yeah, that was my introduction into the snake world. It was really through Vin Russo in 1986, and then it just took me 30 years to get back to it,
Oh, yeah, no, I get it, man. So let me ask you, what are some things outside of reptiles that you're passionate about?
Well, I'd say I'm one of these guys who gets obsessed with whatever I happen to be into at the time, and I kind of really I want to be like an expert in it. And so that bodybuilding was my first love, I guess you could say, that I really fell head over heels for, where I was willing to pour everything in my soul into. And so I wanted to learn how the body worked in terms of to build muscle and to lose fat. And I saw that there was a science to it that no one had really exploited or figured out. And because a lot of the people who had a good insight into training and doing the whole bodybuilding thing had very little formal education. I don't know why. It's just that's just the way it would. So I kind of took my medical school training, all that science geek stuff that they had jammed into my head, and I started applying it towards how to be healthy. Rather than I was kind of turned off by the whole medical profession where they treated symptoms and they really didn't care about what caused disease. Right. I was really into preventative medicine, so I started using that and I started applying that. Okay, how can we build muscle and burn fat and eat, but yet be healthy still? And I kind of, I'm pretty well known now as the guy to go to as far as diets. I kind of was promoting the ketogenic diet, or at least my version of it, the performance version of it, for 20 years before they even came out with this whole keto thing, which is now huge in the regular world. So everyone knows the Palumbo ketogenic diet. They talk about that. And, I'm kind of like the guy to go to in my field as far as, if you can't lose fat, if you can't do this. So to me, I feel very empowered by having that knowledge in terms of and being able to teach it to people. My father was an English teacher for 35 years. And the one thing he said to me, he's like, I'll never tell you what to do. He didn't even tell me go back to medical school, even though I'm sure he wanted to when I dropped out. He always said, don't become a teacher. They don't make any money. He said, the only thing I'll ever tell you. And the funny thing is I became a teacher, just not in the formal sense. I don't teach in a classroom. I'm my own business, but I teach, and I have that's his gift that I got from him of how to take complex, situations and break them down simplistically for people to understand in simplistic terms so that they don't feel intimidated by it, because they don't teach you in school how to eat properly. And I think that's the same thing with the snake world. So I took that ability to do that, and I've applied it to the snake world and reptile world in the sense that everyone made everything so complicated. And Boas are too hard to breed. You ever hear that? I mean,
absolutely, man.
I have so many people say that. They're not. Nothing's hard to do if you know the formula to do it.
Correct.
But the problem is a lot of people either don't want to tell anyone what to do. They think it's some kind of secret. And I know I've lost a couple friends in this reptile world because they were pissed off that I was giving out too many of the quote secrets. And I'm like, who cares? Put it all out there. Everyone should know how to. It should be put out there so that everyone can do it. It's the creativity that comes along with breeding boas that makes you a good boa breeder. It has nothing to do with all right, if I turn the temperatures down and increase the humidity, and that's just a formula, Just because you know how to eat properly and you know how to go to the gym and train doesn't mean you're going to be a world-class bodybuilder. There's a genetic component to that, but there's also a how hard are you willing to work component.
Yeah, and there's also that artistry component to it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The reason why Justin Kabilka is such a great ball python breeder is not that he didn't have more money than everyone else. He just had the creative insight to mix the right morphs together, and then had the marketing savvy to be able to market that. So that's creativity, I call. So there should be no with ball pythons, they're so easy to breed that there's no secrets really once you learn to put them together. But with boas, there's this whole mystique about I don't want to tell this person how I did this or that, And I don't like that. So my RX Muscle Channel's tagline is the truth in bodybuilding. And really, Muscle Serpents University, the reason I called it that was because I wanted to make it a school, like almost like
Right.
that's why I called it Muscle Serpents University. I wanted people to be able to learn because there's people coming into the hobby at different levels, and I don't want them to be intimidated and scared off by it because they think they can't do it. And that's why podcasts like this are great, because you're having people on who are telling other people how to do things and taking away that scare tactic. And that's why when I first got into it, and I'm still doing it, I don't listen to any bodybuilding podcasts. People are like, oh, what bodybuilding? I'm like, I don't listen to any. I listen to only reptile podcasts because I know enough in bodybuilding. I want to learn about I'm still learning in reptiles.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know everything. Yeah. I probably don't even know 50% of what I should know, but I might know 1% more than the next guy. That's about it, So I think the education part of it is really what kind of turns me on about the whole thing. And so I always told people in the bodybuilding world, and I still tell them this, always make sure that there's one other thing that you are so passionate about and you love to do, so that if one thing is not going well in your life, you have the other to fall back on. And that's what I do. I piggyback between bodybuilding and the reptile thing. So if one's not going so good, I get the other one to kind of immerse myself in, and vice versa. And then, of course, I have my kids that, I have young kids now. So that's my third, big, great passion, obviously. So I'm busy, and I think that a lot of people don't have enough interest. And that's why during this time of quarantine, they're all going out of their freaking minds because they don't have anything else going on,
Oh, yeah, no, I feel you, man. And, for me, quarantine's actually been pretty much the same as always because I'm always pretty busy with a series of hobbies and training and all that other stuff. So
yeah.
Let me ask you, man, when you decided to go kind of from that hobby collection into actually, getting a breeding collection going and eventually establishing Palumbo's, pythons, and boas, what kind of made you go through that transition? Was there a key event, or was it something that just kind of gradually developed?
Well, to be honest with you, my wife said that you're wasting all this money on these snakes, as most people's wives do. And I said, well, it's a business. And she's like, it's not a business. You're losing money. I said, well, yeah, but I got to build up a breeding stock before I can make money. So I really wanted to prove to her that I could actually make money from this.
Right.
At least that it wouldn't just be a hobby. Look, because let's face it, I make enough money from bodybuilding. I don't need to make any money from snakes. I could just make it a hobby and lose money. But I don't want to hear her complaining that I'm losing our money, for the kids. So I turned it into a business just really to prove to her that. Plus, I think I'm at a point in my life where I think that everything should be handled as a business, and she's right in that respect. So I set up, I set up a corporation, and I realized at some point, even though I was just buying things, at some point I'd be selling things too, right? Because you want to pay for your food, the rodent bill and all the other supplies that you have to get. And so you can't keep everything you produce either. So you're going to have to sell off the stuff that you don't want or, that you have too many of. And so I set up it as a business. I set up a PayPal account. I have kind of a website, but I really haven't launched the website yet. I own a URL, PalumbosPythons, .com. But I really, in this day and age, I use Morph Market pretty much to sell all my animals. And I use the YouTube channel like I use my RX Muscle channel to educate and to be able to sell things via that vehicle. So if I have a show called Ask Dave on my bodybuilding channel where people ask me questions, and a lot of times people ask me about, hey, let's, for instance, during this COVID thing, everyone's, concerned about immune system. And I do, if someone asks me a question about immune system, and I explain to them that it's important that you take in the right minerals, chelated minerals, specifically the right vitamins to fortify your immune system. And then I say, I make a product called V-Mineralize, which has chelated zinc in it, and we know that zinc inhibits the replication of that virus. I said, and so this is something that, you should be taking because all these vitamins and minerals will keep your immune system healthy. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't take effective dosages of the stuff, and they don't take stuff that actually is absorbable, and that's why chelated minerals are absorbable. And then before you know it, I do that show goes up on our channel, and my wife, who does all the orders on our site, receives them all. She's like, we just sold 1,000 bottles of V-Mineralize. What were you just talking about it or something like that? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, well, in fact, I was. So, but that's it's an educational tool, but it's also a marketing tool. So I'm marketing, but I'm I'm educating people as to why they should use products. And I think that's an advantage of having a channel and a voice, is that if I'm talking about a morph, people might not even know I even have it, or they may not know what makes it special. And so if I have a voice that I can explain to people what this morph is, why it's cool, how you reproduce it, what the genetics of it are, and here's all the different baby, potential you can get, all the different, outcomes. That's going to help me sell the stuff too, rather than me have to go and do marketing in other ways. I never placed an ad on Instagram or Facebook. I don't need to. I use the channel as my educational tool. A lot of times I sell animals before I even list them, because I'm so busy that I don't even have a chance to put the stuff up on Morph Market. And I'm selling, animals because people saw it. Hey, I saw it on your YouTube channel. You have this stuff for sale, and I'll sell it that way. So it's a tool, but I also enjoy it because it's a way of me giving back to the people who are just starting out, or people who just I like to go on and watch people's channel just to see what the newest stuff is, right? I mean, it's cool, I like to listen to these podcasts. I like to go on Facebook and see when people post a new snake. Hey, I just made a so-and-so. Oh my God, holy mackerel, did you see that?
Yeah, no, man. I remember when you ended up producing the crystals. I remember just seeing that, being completely blown away, and then kind of sharing it with a lot of other guys that were chasing the same project. And we're like, holy shit, man. He beat out a lot of people to it.
That was an elusive. I remember I bought the pair of Hypolabbies from Jeff Ronnie, and Jeff had the market cornered on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Right from the beginning. So if you wanted labyrinths, you had to go to him. And a lot of people thought that the crystal was like some mythical unicorn that was not even real, because no one had produced a super labyrinth. And I loved that just the dangling of that carrot there, like the potential. I was like, I got to get a pair of these labbies. But Jeff really charged. I'm not gonna reveal how much, but it was a lot of money for a pair of these things.
Yeah.
He would not go down in price for anyone. I talked to everyone. I know a lot of people. I'm good friends with Mike Weitzman, and no one got a deal on these things. So I bought the pair. I think I paid him off on it because I didn't want my wife to have a nervous breakdown by how much I spent on these things. And, I grew them up. And I said, I am going to breed these two together. That's going to be I know a lot of people started breeding the males out and producing some, well, there was only a couple guys breeding and trying to produce some other combos, but I'm like, I'm going to produce this. I'm going to breed the male and female together. I want to try for that crystal. And I remember I knew the female was gravid, and I remember Jeff posting up a picture the week before my female laid, had the babies. He produced a crystal. I think he produced two, actually, believe it or not. And I was like, shit, he did it before I did, because I thought I was going to get him. I really did. I thought I was going to have it first. And then a week later, I produced three. I actually produced more than that. Two got stuck in the birth canal, and I lost two that were beautiful. Oof. But I produced three living crystals, but they were definitely super hypo, or at least hypo. But I think they're super hypo because they were so reduced pattern. It was the pattern was reduced to a single stripe line down their back, if you remember seeing that. And so they were super hypo crystals, and they were exquisite. They were blue-eyed, and they were pink and white, and I was like, holy man, these are my three dragons, like from Game of Thrones.
That's right, man.
Yeah, it was cool. It was just really cool. It was like the first real thing that I was like, holy mackerel, this is nuts, and that's, when you do something like that, I mean, you're hooked for life after that.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. Absolutely. So let me ask you, man, who were some of the people that kind of mentored you or inspired you kind of in the beginning when you kind of started taking the whole reptile thing more seriously?
Yeah, I would have to say it was definitely Vin. I think Vin really, because it's funny because we hadn't seen each other for 30 years, but we kind of would like I went away to college, and we had just become friends, and so, he remembered that, and Vin has a photographic memory, and he was telling me, my car that I was driving, and it was T-top Pond. He knew more about my car than I did, because he just has this crazy memory. And so I bought a couple things from him, but we started, actually, when I launched Muscle Serpents University, it was going to be with him. I was going to do the show. He would come over to my facility, my office, which is my RX Muscle office, and my nutrition office, and we would film there. he would bring snakes, and we did a couple episodes. If you look at my very first few videos I have up on my, Vin was there, and so I used to ask him a million questions. I probably drove him crazy, but and I read his book 1,000 times, and ironically, I have the new book. I was like one of the first people to get it, and he put a picture of one of the hypocrystals I had given him a picture of in the book, and I still haven't read the whole book yet. So, but I read the initial book cover to cover several times, and so I'm a big immerser. I'm a big believer in immersing yourself in everything you can possibly get. And so he was a big influence because I knew that he knew he was doing things the right way, not the cowboy way, where just throwing. He was taking things very conservatively. He's a very conservative feeder. He doesn't, try to breed his animals too young. He did things the right way. So I said, let me learn from the right guy. And then I met another guy, Mike Weitzman, from basically Boas, and he's a bodybuilder too. So we knew all the same people. He knew who I was from bodybuilding. And so, we used to be on the phone all the time. And Mike knows, no one knows this because Mike is very private. He knows everything. He knows the whole history of the boa world. I mean, the guy is like he's been around since he's a little kid doing it. He's been doing it for 35 years. So he knows everything, and he's very knowledgeable. I probably got more information and more knowledge from him than anyone else in the industry because he just, him and I would talk on the phone. We would talk bodybuilding and health and supplementation, and then we would go into snakes. And so I got a lot of valuable information from him. I bought two snakes from him too, which were really very good. He has excellent quality snakes.
Yeah, no,
I would say that two of those guys are probably like two of the top boa breeders that I would say are no bullshit, like top of the line guys.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%, man. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of your life in bodybuilding. What led you to start training in the first place?
It's the same. I was a long distance runner, believe it or not, in college. I had a partial scholarship for that. I got obsessed with that, with just trying to push your body to the limit. I was always I'm always a guy I want to have a vision in my head of what I want to look like and what I want to be able to do, and then I want to make it happen. And I really wasn't meant to be a long distance runner. I kind of molded my body into that by just running 10 miles a day and doing all this stuff and starving myself down to weight because I kind of had muscle by nature on my legs especially. And distance runners are those, the guys that run the marathons. They're like these emaciatedly skinny guys. And so I had to really, really torture myself to look like that. And I was good. I was in Division III, in college. And so I was like one of the best guys in Division III. I could never have run with those guys who go Division I and into the Olympics. I wasn't at that level. Plus, I didn't know anything about performance-enhancing drugs at that point. I didn't know anything. The guys used that. I was really naive to that. So I was in that little world. And then I had always worked out a little bit in high school, and then after college was coming to an end, I was like, you know what? I'm never going to get a date with a girl weighing 140 pounds. So I started working out again. Yeah, but I had good genetics to build muscle. I knew I did, so I started working out, and I gained 80 pounds in literally, 2 years. I put on a lot of weight. I went over 200 pounds, and I started, I said, holy man, this is addicting. I love how I'm changing. And I did my first bodybuilding show, and I'm like, bodybuilding, for those of you who haven't never done it, it's very addicting because it's like watching your body transform, and you can, hey, I want to put a little bit more muscle here and a little there. And if you ever hear Arnold talk about it, it's exactly what Arnold Schwarzenegger says. You can mold your body like you're a sculptor with clay, except you're putting muscle on your body. So to me, that was a challenge, and it empowered me, I think, and it gave me a lot of confidence in myself. All the very superficial reasons that we all want to look better, right? So that we feel more secure with ourselves. But I got to a point where it wasn't just about getting dates with girls anymore. It was about hey, I really like competing. I like this whole idea of being able to challenge yourself and be better than the next guy. And because a lot of it came down to who can work harder. Can you torture your body more than the next guy to get your body fat levels so low that you're in better condition than them on stage, and all the nuances that go along with bodybuilding that people might not be interested in. So that whole challenge, really set the tone for the rest of my life, because if you can put your body into a state where pain doesn't matter anymore because you want to look a certain way, you can apply that to everything else you do in life. You can never fail. I mean, because that if you don't have that attitude in your head, like I can do anything, then then how could you fail? And I always tell people, if you want to be a good snake breeder, just don't quit. The only way you can fail as a snake breeder is by quitting, because people give up all the time because they're like, oh, this sucks, because I thought it was going to be so easy, and that means you didn't really like it to begin with. If you don't love being a snake, if you don't love snakes, if you don't love breeding snakes, if you don't love the whole idea of it, you're doing it because you think you're going to make money or something like that, or get fame, you're in it for the wrong reason. You should do it because you would do it for free, because you would pay to do it. That's what I always did bodybuilding. I always said, you know what? I would pay to be a bodybuilder. I'm glad that I can make a living doing it. I make a very good living as a bodybuilder, or as, at least in the industry now. But I would have paid money for them to let me go on stage. That's how much I loved it. And that's the way I am with snakes. And I think you're probably the same way. And all the guys listening to this are like, I would probably pay money to be a snake breeder if I had to pay if I had to pay like a gym membership, to be in the Snake Breeders Association, you'd pay because you like doing it. Those people never fail. Those people are always successful because you'll never quit because you just like doing it, right?
Yeah, and I think you hit on a really good point, man. And that's that, bodybuilding a lot of times teaches you that mentality of, number one, being able to confront yourself when you potentially fail at something and then finding a way to improve it and essentially pushing through that wall, right? So that, and then
absolutely.
I think that way that thing ends up translating to a lot of other aspects, in your life. I know, like for me, translated really well and eventually led me to like get into military special operations, right? Because most people say they want to do something, but 99% of them end up quitting when it gets really difficult.
You got to be a nutcase mentally strong to be able to get through that, because they try to break you in that. Right? The challenge is there.
But the one thing that I notice, man, is the mentalities are similar, right? So the guys that succeed in bodybuilding, especially at the highest level, they share kind of the same mentality that guys, like for example in special operations, whether it's like a SEAL team or a force reconnaissance team, it's that mentality of no matter what, I'm going to figure my way through it. I'm going to try to become a subject matter expert in every facet of my job, or if in my hobby, or in whatever thing you're pursuing, right? So I think you hit on a lot of that stuff. Hey, man, let me ask you.
I try to tell people all the time. I tell people all the time, don't quit. In bodybuilding too, I say, look, every single human being out there, male or female, okay, can gain muscle and can lose fat.
Absolutely.
How will you look when you gain the muscle and lose the fat is genetically determined by what your genetic structure is, okay, and how smart you are in the gym in terms of training and applying that. But we all have a certain genetic capability of how we're going to look shape-wise and structure-wise, right? And that comes mostly from our parents. But anyone can put muscle on if they eat right and train hard in the gym, and everyone can lose body fat if you diet correctly. So if you know the right formula, and that's what that's my life sole job, telling people how to eat right so that you can build muscle and lose fat. If you follow the formula, you have to get bigger muscularly and you have to lose body fat, because it's an absolute scientific certainty. There's no doubt about that. So if you don't quit and you work hard enough, you will build muscle and burn fat. Like I said, not everyone's going to be Mr. Olympia, because not everyone. I didn't have the genetics to be Mr. Olympia, and I happen to have been one of the biggest guys in bodybuilding. I was over 300 pounds at one point, and I was very lean at over 300 pounds. So, but I didn't have the structure to be Mr. Olympia. But I was able to prove to people, hey, here's a guy who's not structurally Mr. Olympia, competitor, but I was able to put on as much muscle as a Mr. Olympia. So I think that said a lot, and to the average person, and I think people can it resonates with people. Hey, I'm going to listen to that guy, because that guy is not genetically the most gifted guy, but he knows what he's doing, and that's what I want. And I think that's the whole key with snake breeding. Some people in snake breeding just got lucky. They bought into a project, or they produced a spontaneous mutation in their collection, and then they made a lot of money from it. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily a great breeder of snakes. Right. So the breeding of snakes is it's twofold, just like in bodybuilding. Number one, educate yourself. You need to know how to do the things right. You need to know the methodologies that work. And then number two, apply it, because you can read a book about how to be a tennis player, but until you swing a tennis racket, you're not a tennis player.
Right.
Just like I could read 100 books on how to breed snakes. Until I breed snakes, I'm not a snake breeder. So there's an experience component, and then there's a knowledge component. And when you combine both of them at maximal capacity, you become a master at what you're doing. And I believe it takes, I've read books too, and they agree this. It takes 10 years of doing something to be a master, experientially speaking. So I look at it this way. I've been breeding snakes since 14. I still got, I still got another 4 years before I can call myself a master. But you know what I'm saying? If you constantly practice what you're doing, you're going to be great at it. Okay. And if you learn the right way to do things, and because you educate yourself by watching podcasts like this and reading books and etc., then you're going to become an expert. And you can't help but be an expert, if you do those two things.
Oh no, absolutely, man. And kind of along those same lines, you've touched on a lot of lessons that you've learned from bodybuilding that you've brought into the reptile hobby. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about was more kind of the business side also. And that, I know you started your own nutrition and supplement company, and obviously you have a lot of social media work within bodybuilding that you've been translating into the reptile hobby. So what are some of those lessons business-wise and social media-wise that you've kind of brought in that you learned in the bodybuilding world that now you're applying into reptiles?
To be honest with you, I want to be honest with my whole life. I'm the worst businessman, to be honest with you. But I'm also an excellent businessman, because I always say I'm a terrible salesman, but I'm a great salesman because I'm passionate about what I do. So
you're passionate, and I speak totally.
And when people hear that, it becomes intoxicating to them. So if I'm talking about why you need an essential fatty acid supplement, because your body doesn't produce these two families of essential fats, omega-6s and omega-3s, and humans need to use animal sources of omega-3s because we can't process the plant sources and turn them into usable form. And I give you this whole educational tool, and then I say, well, that's the reason I made my Omega-Lyze formula, because it's the only essential fatty acid supplement on the market that actually has effective dosages and uses an animal source of omega-3s, specifically fish oil, and uses a very high potency form of omega-6 fats coming from evening primrose oil. And then I also put an omega-7 fatty acid in there that's not essential, but it helps with insulin sensitivity and reducing total body inflammation. You're like, where can I buy it? Right?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't try to sell it to you. I'm not trying to say, hey, I got a great deal on it. I'm doing a 5-for-1 today. No, I'm selling it based on its merit. That I'm good at, okay? And I'm not the guy who's going to call up people on the phone and say, hey, you should really bring my Species Nutrition line in there, because I hate doing sales like that. I'm an educator. I like to educate people and then have people come and buy the products because of the merit of the product. And that's why I sell a very high end product line. I don't sell something that's going to compete in Walmart. It's more of a Mercedes. To sell a Mercedes, you have to really tell people why it's a Mercedes, because if they don't know why your car is better than the other car, they're not going to buy it, right? If you didn't know the Mercedes was better, you're not going to spend double the money on a Mercedes. You're going to buy a Honda.
Absolutely.
So you got to be able to educate. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be the same. First of all, my whole reason for breeding snakes is because I want to produce high-end stuff. I know you produce some middle and lower-end stuff just by coincidence, because you're not always going to produce triple recessive animals. You're going to get some that because of God that are zero, that hit nothing.
Right.
So but my goal was to produce very high-end animals. Now if I'm going to produce high-end animals, I better be able to sell the high-end animals, which means I have to explain to people why they're high-end. Obviously looking good is one great reason, but how to produce them and what I went through to produce these animals. And so that was the business model that I took from my nutrition company over to the snakes. I'm not going to produce massive amounts of animals. I'm going to produce high-end stuff, and I'm going to explain to people how I did it, because that's exciting. Oh shit, that's pretty cool. And I tell people all the time in the videos I do, if you watch them, I say, look, you don't have to buy the double recessive. You don't have to buy the Paradigm Blood boa from me. You can buy the double head Paradigm Blood and make your own if you don't have enough money. So not everyone starts at the same level. If you're 17 years old, your parents are not giving you $5,000 to buy, a snake, But for $250 or $300, you can buy a double het, and you're young, you grow them up, and you produce your own. So big deal. You only hit one visual, but now you got a visual animal that you produced from a $500 investment.
Right.
And so that's exciting. But you have to know, and you have to educate the people out there that you can make this very expensive snake from these hets. You just have to be patient, and you have to understand that if you want to get into the game and you don't have a lot of money to get in at a high level, you have to just be patient. So when I went out there and got into the reptile world, I bought high-end females, and I said, I'm just going to grow them up. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to try to chase adults and everything like that. I'm going to buy, in 2014, I went out and bought a lot of very, good animals that were, I knew in the future would be worth something. I didn't go and buy low-end stuff. And little by little, I'm still doing it. Now, luckily now I have high-end stuff, so I can trade a lot of people for stuff. I don't have to necessarily fork out a lot. But every once in a while, I fork out a good amount of money, I'm embarrassed to say. Right. Because you have to keep doing that to stay relevant, and to get good stuff. Because, and that's, that was my business model, if you may. Someone else may have a different business model. So you have to do whatever resonates with you. That was how I chose to do it. And I said, I'm going to market it like I market bodybuilding, through education.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. So let me ask you right now, as far as the projects that you're focusing on, what are some of the projects that are kind of that have you excited, and maybe some of your primary project focuses?
They all pretty much excite me, because I didn't get into anything that really I didn't like. So I love the labyrinth stuff, obviously. I actually, I took one of those crystal males that I produced, and I bred him back to his mother this year. And I don't know if he wasn't old enough, because I saw locks, and the female went early this year, because I gave her the year off last year. And I thought I was going to get 50% crystals. And I got all slugs. And I got one crystal that was just not developed. So I know the male is fertile, obviously, because I wouldn't have gotten anything, right? I wouldn't have gotten any fertiles. I wouldn't have gotten any snakes, rather. But I just think he was too young. And I think, sometimes, with boas, they're not like ball pythons. You can't breed them too young. I think maybe he just wasn't mature enough, And so I was kind of disappointed in that one. That was I was really looking forward to producing a whole bunch of crystals, and being able to get them out there. But it didn't happen. So that was the first failure of the season. But I produced... I love the albino blood project, and I'm really into the sharp version of that. The fire opals you can produce with the hypo albino bloods. It's funny, I have this female. I have this hypo blood that's het for sharp, and 2 years ago she produced 4 babies for me. Right. and believe it or not, 2 of them were fire opals.
Oh, get out of here, man.
Yeah, I hit crazy odds. I couldn't believe it. And I sold one to a good friend of mine. I kept the other one. And the other male will probably breed, I'll be breeding him next year. And so I bred the same female again this year, thinking, well, she was young. I did breed her, I bred her at I think she was 2.5 or something like that. So I said, well, sometimes you do that. And I gave her the year off, and I bred her again this year. And she went early. And she gave me 3 babies again, a really small, She doesn't even look like she gave birth. She's back to her weight already. There was about 5 or 6 slugs in there, but it was same pairing. But I got, and here's the funny thing, I got 2 more fire opals out of it. Out of 3 babies, I got 2 fire opals and a sun glow het blood. So, and the father was not a visual. The father was a sun glow. Excuse me. The father was a sharp het blood. So the odds were not in my favor. So I don't know. I just got really lucky. So that was an encouraging. Hopefully they'll make it. I got them. In the incubator right now. She had them 2 weeks ago. So I got lucky with that one. But I love that project. I do. I'm probably one of my favorite projects is this blood albino and the paradigm blood. I've produced a bunch of those. I actually from 2019 I have still 2 paradigm male visuals that I haven't sold they're growing nicely, and for some reason that's a very healthy gene combination. I usually have very few infertiles. They all usually make it. It's not a weak strain at all. Sometimes the albino can be weak, but the paradigm seems to be very, very very, very vigorous.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny, I sold a lot of the double hets, believe it or not, because a lot of people like the project, but, they just don't have the money to get into it because they're still, Paradigm Blood is still going for $4,500 to $5,000, a visual. So I didn't sell that many of the, and I'm not gonna whore it out. I don't need to. I can keep the animals if I have to. I don't need it to pay my bills, which is lucky, because a lot of times these guys get involved and they're like, I can't pay my bills. I got it, and they start whoring off stuff, and then it ruins the value of the market. So I love that project. I love the albino blood. I love Paradigm Blood stuff, and I'm starting to mix it into some other stuff now. I also love the Sterling project that I had mentioned earlier. I love the idea of a patternless boa. And what Vin Russo did, what Vin did, for those who don't know, is he bred for like 25 years the reddest of snakes together. So every time he would see a red snake, he would breed it together. And then the babies, he would take the reddest babies and breed them together, and then take the reddest babies of those babies and breed them together. And he called it his Russo Red Pastel line. So he had a snake that looked like almost like a blood boa in redness, and there was no genetics. It was a polygenic trait. It was just a line-bred trait. And then he bred it into a Sterling, which was a patternless snake. He produced a het, Sterling that was, Russo Red Pastel. And those are the ones that I'm working with now. And so if you look at my latest video I put up, the male that I use as my breeder now, that I produced 3 years ago, he's a Russo Red Pastel, and I think he's super hypo, and he's Sterling. He is so red, this snake, that you would think he is blood, that he had the blood gene in him. You would swear to it. That's how red this thing is. So I bred him back to his mother to produce, because a lot of people have been asking, they want the visual Sterlings now.
Right.
I sold all the hets off from that first litter in 2 seconds, okay, because people saw that. And I also bred him to his sister. No, excuse me. I bred his sister, to a Paradigm Blood. So I'm hopefully going to produce, assuming she goes, because she's a little young, I'm going to produce triple hets, really, if you think about it. They would be het for blood, het for Sterling, and para het. Because think about a Paradigm Blood Russo Red Pastel Sterling. I think that might be the reddest snake you could produce, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's a long-term project that I'm really looking forward to, because I want to make a solid fire engine red snake. And they're out there already, but nothing that's perfected yet. I think this would be like perfection if we can do it. That gets me going a lot. I love the fire. The funny thing is, I love the Super Fire project, and I have a couple of them, and I have yet to produce one Super Fire. Matter of fact, I've yet to produce any fires whatsoever. For some reason, I have really bad luck with the fires reproducing in my collection. I'm hoping this year that'll all change, but I don't know what it is. I get slugs. I don't get anything. It's a weird, and other people breed them all the time and have no problem. So I don't know. I just think I have bad luck with it. The dwarf boas is something that I'm really into, and you and I were discussing that before the show. And I got it. I actually heard Frank Nutt on Vin Russo's radio show that he had for that short period of time, talking about the onyx boa, which was a dwarf locality kind of trait, similar to a leopard, but not the same. And he had produced some really cool stuff, and I imported a bunch of snakes from him from the Netherlands. I think I imported a 1.2 of a hypo onyx that was double het for T positive and the Honduran T positive in blood, and it actually proved out to be also het for anery type 2. And I also imported a 1.1 of a super onyx T positive male with a sumaton female. So anyway, I imported these snakes, but what I didn't realize, and Frank had told me this, but it's true, these dwarf boas stay completely super crazy small, and they don't eat a lot. Yeah. You know how we think of boas being voracious eaters? They eat when they want to eat. So they grow slow. They stay very small. I'm talking they're much smaller than ball pythons. but it's the coolest thing when you see these things reproduce. So I had a litter. I had one female that was a pretty decent eater, and so she produced over the last couple of years. I produced 2 litters from her, and these onyxes are awesome. They're awesome. I think you can consider it a quad homozygous animal. I don't even know how I did it. I produced a hypo blood super onyx Honduran T positive. Did I say blood? I don't remember if I said blood. I think I said hypo blood, Honduran T positive, super onyx, anery type 2. Okay? So it's 4 homozygous and a hypo in there. I was actually pissed off that I hit the anery thing because I can't even imagine how red it would have been. Okay? Because think about it, the super onyx is red.
Right.
You add hypo, it strips. It's like leopard. You take away a little layer of darkness, and it becomes even redder. The Honduran T positive is like the reddest T positive line you can get. Then you put the blood gene in there. I mean, it would have been crazy. But then at the last minute, I hit the anery thing. So the anery kind of sucked the red out of it. So it's this like ghost-like white patternless snake that I have almost. It's wacky looking snake, insanely colored. I don't know how to even explain what it looks like. Now, Frake this year also produced, or maybe it was last year, he produced the visual. I think he calls it the Bloody Baron or the Bloody T-Positive Baron or something like that. It's the hypo, super onyx, Honduran T-Positive blood without the anery. He did it. And it's like crazy red, this thing. It's crazy red. So these little snakes are so cool because they're so easy to keep. They don't eat a lot. They don't require a lot of room. For someone who's getting into like Boas, who loves Boas, who just can't afford to buy these big 4-foot cages, and this is a great project. It's like, to me, this is like the future of boa breeding because it's
absolutely.
like a mini. It's like I have these 2 dogs. Okay, I have a teacup Yorkie. It's a micro teacup. The thing is 2.5 pounds. It's full grown. It's almost 10 years old already. And I have a teacup Maltese, which is not as small, but it's still like 4.5 pounds. They're the coolest dogs. They're like, you get every benefit of the dog. They don't have to be walked. They go on little pee-pee pads like little kids.
Yeah.
Almost, and you can enjoy them without having to say, oh, I got to take the dog for a walk 40 times a day and let it out, and there's poops everywhere. When they pee, it's like a hamster went to the bathroom on the pee-pee pad. So and there's appeal. That market for teacup dogs is huge because you get all the benefits of the dog, but they're cute. You know what I mean? This is like what the dwarf boa market is going to become.
And I was talking.
Dwarf boas were boring because they were like, a lot for some people, not for others, because some people are into locality stuff. Because most of the dwarf boas were the island boas or the Central American boas, and they kind of look dirty looking. But now with all these morphs we have in them, and you can make them so clean looking and it's red and these vivid colors, and this onyx gene is just amazing because it's a dark gene, and when you strip away the darkness, you get red, almost like I said, like leopard.
Right.
People are going to go crazy once they become more available. The problem is it's not really a problem. It's actually a good problem because they take a long time to breed until they're like 4 or 5 years old, the females, and they grow slow and they're not big eaters. So you can't produce a ton of them, which will keep the price up. They'll hold their value really well, but you're not going to see 1 million of them on the market anytime soon. And there's only a couple of people in the U.S. who actually imported these. And actually, one of the guys who imported them wanted to sell me his, believe it or not. But he wanted a lot of money for them, and I kind of had better stuff than he had already. And I was like, you know what, I don't want to overwhelm. I don't want to overwhelm myself. Once again, I'm not into quantity, and I don't care about cornering the market. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to produce nice stuff, and if I'm going to keep the best stuff that I want, and then whatever else, I realize I can't keep everything. I'm going to sell the rest of it. So that's a project that I'm really into. I think that has a lot of potential that I've just begun to tap into.
Yeah, and then I think you hit on a really valuable point, and that's, for example, how that maybe relates to like the mini dog market, right? In the sense that you're going to have a lot of people that would love to move away from, the ball python side, the pet rock side, for a lot of ways, because they're not the truth is they're fantastic colors, but a lot of times they lack kind of that interactive quality that people tend to prefer from from animals. And if you get essentially, the boa personality put into a package smaller than a ball python, it opens that up to a lot of folks who may have been intimidated by the animal size or requirements in the past.
You're right. And you know what? A lot of people don't know this, and I'm hopefully going to somehow get one of these if they ever sell them. There's a Central American albino now out there.
Right.
A lot of people probably know about that. I think TSK is working with, and if they ever get these things to breed and enough to sell a couple of them, imagine getting the albino in that small size into the Central Americans. Because once you breed the Colombian albino into the, and we've all done it, right? I mean, That's how we made albino bloods. The snakes get bigger; they don't stay small anymore. So once we can use a Central American dwarf, albino, I think it's going to. Once again, it'll take a while to get all this stuff into all these genes in there again. But in 10 years from now, we're going to have a miniature version of boas that are going to be just as spectacular as the big Colombians.
Oh, absolutely, man. And then if you even think about it, with the pied boa being a Central American boa,
absolutely.
Now you have a whole different level of potential that is available for that particular project.
Yeah, I didn't want to even mention that. I do have some het pieds.
Oh, fantastic!
In my collection that are going to take a long time to get to breed, but they're there. I did some trades for them using some of the high end stuff I had, and I hope that they're genetic. We'll find out. No one's really produced any visuals yet,
right? But
obviously, to tell you the truth, I don't. You have you don't want to jinx yourself sometimes. I have them, but I don't talk about them, and I kind of they're there, but I don't really even. I pretend they're not, because until I see the reality of them, until I see them reproduce and produce a pied, I don't have them as far as I'm concerned. Right. I did a video, and you might have seen it. I got sucked into this red ball python project. It was this guy in Poland had produced these solid red ball pythons. It was an albino black ball. That's what he was calling it.
Yeah.
It was a black ball python that when you added albino, it was just the reddest snake you've ever seen. And there's no red in ball pythons, for those of you who know. I got involved and bought into this project, the hets, through a friend of mine, Mike, who imported these snakes, and it turned out it was a big scam. And it was a lot of money spent and wasted. But I in the back of my mind, I treated them the same way. I never believed they were real, because I said, you know what? Until I actually see them produced, and someone produces a couple of them, it's a mythical. It's like investing in the stock market. It was a penny stock that I bought a lot of in hopes that maybe it would hit, and it didn't. So I was like, oh, all right. Well, I lost money, but I gambled. If I would have hit, it would have been great. So if these pieds hit, they're going to change the boa breeding world for sure, because everyone's going to want to get every gene into that pied.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Think about it. Panda pied, boas would be pretty crazy. You do an IMG pied. How crazy is that, right?
Absolutely, man. So, brother, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'd like to talk to you about your experience establishing a social media presence for your reptile business.
Sure.
All right, guys, we're back. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is a lot of times when people set out to grow a customer base, an important thing that they need to address is the establishment of a good social media presence. So Dave has not only succeeded in doing this in the bodybuilding industry, but also in the reptile industry. Dave, can you kind of provide us a little background on how you got started with social media?
Yeah, I kind of got sucked into it, like you said, with the bodybuilding world, because you have to do that. And I was really good at it with bodybuilding. Originally it started with forums on my RX Muscle website, and then we went obviously to Facebook and then Instagram. And I actually have a guy now who works with me, and he does a lot of the social media. He does all the posts, but I do it my own. I have my own. I have 100,000 followers on my Dave Palumbo Instagram, just because of it's mostly bodybuilding. I don't even put snake pictures on that profile. And so I said, you know what? I think it's important. Everyone uses Instagram, and I started using Instagram to look up stuff that I liked. Like if I look like a certain boa morph, I would go on Instagram and plug it in, and if I like a certain, I'm into tropical fish too. I don't have any fish tanks anymore, but when I was in New York, before I moved down to Florida, I had like 16 fish tanks. So I'll go on there and I'll look at different cichlids, and there's I don't know if anyone out there follows fish. There's something called a red arowana. It's like the unicorn, because you can't import them into this country because they're illegal, the red ones. And so I always go in there and look at the different red, arowana. So I knew Instagram was a good way to market. So I said, I'll just start a Palumbo's pythons. I'll put up pictures when I'm cleaning, animals, or if I produce some cool babies, I'll just snap a picture and I'll just put them up. I'm not gonna put pressure on myself to do it, like neurotically, because I find that social media because if you're an obsessive compulsive person, and I wouldn't say I'm OCD, but I'm close to it, because I'm a perfectionist. You can start getting stressed out by the whole thing, So I said, I'll put up when I have the ability to. If I have busy days, like I record my bodybuilding stuff on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I can't get to it, fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Same thing about when I started my YouTube channel for Muscle Serpents University. Recently I started saying I'm going to do a video every day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and sometimes I just can't do them. I just don't have enough time, and I don't stress myself out. I don't beat myself up for it and say, "Oh, I fucked up." I don't. I just don't know. But the key is consistency. People like consistency on social media. So you're going to start off. You're going to have no one following you. Okay, that's just the way it goes. Now I had a little bit of an advantage because I invited a lot of my friends from bodybuilding to look at my reptile page, and I segregated the two. Like I said, I don't do crossover. I don't do bodybuilding on the reptile page. I don't do reptiles on the bodybuilding page, just because it's a niche like type of market, both of them, and you don't want to piss off your fans.
Yeah,
Once in a while, I'll throw a snake picture up just for good measure, but that's really it. So I started Palumbo's pythons and boas, and I like the fact that on Instagram, you can share it as soon as you post it to Instagram. It shares it to your Facebook page. So you kind of can kill two birds with one stone nowadays, which makes it easier. So you don't have to post to both things. You post to one and post to the other. And like I said, you just put up interesting stuff, and that's pretty much what I do. I put up I have enough stuff that I produce now that I can put up my own stuff on a regular basis, and people seem to be interested in it. And then, I'll put up little comparisons sometimes. What I've been doing recently, I wish I had more time to do it, is I've been doing little clips. Sometimes I'll put up a clip of something that I did on YouTube,
right?
And to get people excited about the video, because a lot of times people don't know, just because they follow your Instagram, they don't know you have a YouTube channel, which I always find crazy, because once I find one person's page, I always go to all their pages, but not everyone does that. So you got to cross promote on all your platforms, so to speak, and just be consistent. People go to pages that they'll consistently see stuff on, and don't overpost. I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make too. They put too much stuff up there, and that's sometimes annoying. I have this girl that I work with. She does. I told her, I said, start putting up you should put up tips about how to train at home. Now that we're all quarantined, and she's putting up like 25 clips a day on her Instagram, and it always pops up on my timeline because she made me follow her, and it's annoying. It's annoying because it's kind of redundant. So you're better off. Less is sometimes better. Let people want more rather than give them too much.
That's a really good tip, man. That's a really good tip, man. So one of the things that I've always noticed is and wondered what, especially from people that put up a high volume, and I'm not saying high volume in a short time, but just a steady volume of social media work, is what kind of time commitment is associated with that work? Do you feel like you spend a lot of time a day handling the social media side of the house?
I think that my wife would probably tell you, yeah, he does spend too much time on his phone. So I you know what the truth is, and I hate to say this, if I didn't have kids, I probably would be on there all day putting stuff up, because that's the kind of person, because that's how I am. I don't think I ever do enough. Just like on the bodybuilding, I don't think I ever produce enough videos. I always I'll watch the other stuff and see what other people put up, and I'm like, I should have done more. And I'm like, what are you nuts? You put 2 videos up a day. We do, So I have that driven mentality. I just think I can never put enough stuff up. So I have to sometimes pull myself back a little bit and just, say, calm down. You can't spend the whole day on social media. So I try to put up something significant every day if possible. Let's face it, we're always going to be cleaning snakes, right? You're always going to be in your snake room every day. The more stuff you have, you could always put, cool stuff up there, while you're cleaning, just have your phone in your pocket. And you know what? If something unusual, or something funny happens, or something like, sometimes I'll find a snake and it's like hanging from a light fixture. I'm like, where the hell did this guy get out? How did he get up there? I'll take a picture of it and put it on Instagram. People love that stuff. If a boa gives birth, and a lot of times I forget. I'm like, oh shit, why didn't I take a picture of that? And I'll run back to the snake building and I'll go take a picture. But yeah, just take pictures, and have them on your phone. You don't have to post them instantly. Once they're on your phone, then when you're later, look, let's face it, we all go to the toilet bowl, sit on the toilet with our phone, right? So while you're sitting on the toilet with your phone, you post a couple pictures on your Instagram, But take the pictures during the day and have them there, and then you could always, whatever you want to do with them at that point.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip, man. Yeah, that's absolutely on point. I think one of the things that maybe we're saying but not quite speaking about is the fact that you are selling a lifestyle in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll tell you what I'm jealous about. When I watch some of these guys' YouTube channels, my friend Miguel from Always Evolving Pythons, these guys are doing it's almost like day in the life of themselves.
Right,
they're showing, and you know what the funny thing is? I know people would like that because I have like an unusual, interesting life because it's insane. If I had a camera crew filming me like for a reality show, it would be popular. I promise you. My wife and I arguing, people would love it. But there's got to be at some point, there's got to be some kind of shut off the camera type of time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think it can be too much too. I used to do, before I was married, I would do Day in the Life of Dave Palumbo for my bodybuilding channel. People loved it. I would shave. I would show them how I bleach my teeth. I would go to aquarium stores. I would go. The guy around the corner had my jet ski. He was jerking me around. I went in and threatened him and something like that, and yelling and screaming at him. People loved this stuff. And if I did that with the snake stuff, and included all that in the snake videos, I know that would be popular. I would probably have way more followers. But what I decided was I wasn't going to do that because number one, I don't have enough time. Number two, it's too emotionally draining to constantly have a camera on you. I have a camera on me all the time anyway for bodybuilding. So what I decided was I'm just going to make the YouTube channel educational. Once in a while, I'll throw funny, put some funny stuff in there. Sometimes I get bit and I get a security camera footage from my security cameras of me getting bit and just looking like a complete idiot. I'll put that on there. But by and far, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to keep it and I know what's going to happen. I'm going to isolate myself, and I'm only going to have the hardcore fans that are going to really just want to learn about snakes or into morphs, the geeky stuff. And I'm not going to have the popular people, the population of just people that like to watch goofy shit. I'm not going to get those people, but it's okay. If I don't get 1 million followers, whatever it is. Brian Barczyk took a different approach. He said, I got to get the masses because that's going to enable me to create the zoo I want to produce, and then that he wants to be like a celebrity on TV, and he made his own TV through YouTube, and he's doing very successfully. I'm kind of friends with him, so kudos to him. He's doing a great job with that. But that's what he does. He doesn't have a bodybuilding, and his kids are full grown, so he can do that. So you have to kind of figure out what your I guess you could say home life is like, what your schedule's like, because a lot of people have regular jobs. I'm lucky that I'm my own boss, but I work more probably hours than most people do at a normal job, and I can make my own hours. But if you have to go to the office, or you have to go to a hospital, or you have to go wherever you work for 8 hours a day, that's going to cut into how much time you have available to do this. So you have to look and see what you have available and cater your social media and your YouTube presence to what you can do consistently.
Absolutely.
That's important.
Absolutely.
That means every day.
Yeah.
Because if you can't do it, you might get a couple great videos, but then you're not doing it consistently. People stop watching your channel. So find out what you can do on a consistent basis and then do that, rather than try to give yourself such grandiose plans that you fail right from the beginning because you just don't have the time to put into it.
Absolutely, man. Those are great tips, man. I appreciate you kind of sharing that with us. So now, brother, we're going to jump into the Dirty Dozen. All right, guys, it's time for the Dirty Dozen. Dave, I'm going to ask you 12 questions. You give me 12 answers. They can be as short or as long as you want. Here we go. So,
Okay.
number one, what's the size of your current collection?
I have no idea. I would say anywhere ranging from 250 to 350 animals.
All right, number two, husbandry. Are you a frozen and thawed guy, or are you live feeder? And what kind of bedding do you like to use?
Everything's on paper towels or paper. All my big snakes I put on U-line paper, and all the ball pythons and anything in a smaller tub goes on bounty paper towels, which I'm in constant search of now that we have this quarantine because everyone's buying up all the paper towels. But yeah, I just like it better. I just think it's easier. The only thing I have on coconut chip is I have some blue tongues. I have 4 blue tongue skinks, and I put those on there because they don't like paper towels, and they poop too many times a day, so it would be too hard. As far as what I feed the boas and the carpet pythons and the berms, frozen thawed, and every ball python and all my babies get live because I don't have time to sit there wiggle stuff, waiting for them to eat it. So all the babies and ball pythons get live because ball pythons are horrendous eaters, and the and the good eaters, the ones that will eat anything, those all get frozen thawed. So I do about half and half.
Cool. Number three, what's your favorite morph or locality of boa?
That's a tough one to pick one. I guess I would say. I guess I'm going to say labyrinth. I really do. I'm really into the labyrinth.
All right, man. Number four, what is the most overrated morph in your opinion, or a morph that maybe just doesn't do it for you?
I think they all have their own merit, and you know what? The minute I say that one is not cool, someone will make a combination with it that will be freaking off the freaking charts.
That's the way it is, man.
Right? Isn't that always the case? So, it's like, I'll give you, I'll deviate from boas for a second. They have a morph in ball pythons called the sunset.
Right.
And it's ridiculously priced. Brian Barczyk brought it in originally, and they're still selling them for great. It's the ugliest morph I've ever seen. And, I want to have everything. That's like my mentality. And I have no desire to have this more. I just think no one has made anything with the thing that looks great. And a lot of people spent a ton of money on this thing. And I think everyone is just mixing it with everything to try to hopefully hit something. And you know what? Someone might hit a combination that looks amazing, but to me, that was an overrated morph. I don't think there's anything overrated in boas. Like, in other words, anything that's expensive is pretty cool, Yeah. I haven't seen something that says, "Oh, I would never spend any money on that. What a waste that is,"
All right. What's the most underrated morph in boas? What do you feel people are sleeping on?
Good question. Look, I love the scoria boa. I didn't even mention that. I should have maybe mentioned that in one of my favorites, but I love it. It's like a spider ball python in the sense that it can have a little bit of a neurological wobble to it, but I don't think it's as bad. But I love that scoria. I think it's the most unusual, unique looking boa I've ever seen. It has a purplish hue to it. The eyes are amazing. They don't, at least mine don't seem to get as big. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential. I produced 5 scoria double head paradigm bloods last year. I sold one to a good friend of mine, and I'm selling one more. I'm keeping 3 of them. I haven't listed the one I'm selling yet. If anyone's interested, contact me. But to me, I think there's a ton of potential because a paradigm blood scoria is just going to be freaking nuts looking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Just any blood with scoria is going to be insanely red because those things are very red on their own.
They're red already. Imagine putting a little bit of I think paradigm might even be better. I think because I've seen albino scorias and they kind of get a little washed out looking, right. But I think the paradigm, which is a little bit more melanin in it gives a little more contrast. I think with the blood, which is a dark morph to me, I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a hit. I could be wrong, but I can't wait to find out in a couple of years.
Definitely, man. All right, number 6. What's your favorite part of the hobby?
Favorite part of the hobby? Why? I mean, I love breeding animals, but I think it's seeing what everyone else makes. I'll tell you, it's what drives me to want to make better stuff. So I love the fact that we can share it all via social media because it drives me crazy, and at the same time it drives me, if that makes sense. Because I'll watch videos, and if I see a video of someone making something that I didn't make first, or that's better than what I have, I can't sleep at night almost from it. It'll drive me so crazy. It happens more in ball pythons because I'm not quite up there with like if I see Justin Kabilka produce something that's just nuts off the chart, I'm like, I don't even. I almost have to stop watching it in the middle and then go back to it because I'm so depressed that he has such great stuff. But that's what drives you to want to do better stuff, right? So you need that inspiration because if there's not someone better than you out there, then it's almost like you have nothing to strive for, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. All right, number 7. What's the worst part of the hobby?
I think it's the people who whore out the animals. The people who just you have a project that it's a high end project. You bought into it at a high value, and then people just they need money, and then they start just giving the stuff away, and they completely devalue the project. But I mean that's with everything in life. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that just comes with the. I don't even care about the people out there who are the negative people who naysay everything because that's in life. I mean, when I do a YouTube video on my bodybuilding channel, I might get I can get 100,000 views on the channel on the video, and I'll get people who love it and think it's the greatest thing and think I'm the greatest thing, and then people who hate my guts and think I'm the most disgusting looking, stupidest. Misinformed person of all time, and I laugh at that because that's validation for me. That means that I've gotten them so emotionally incensed that I must have done something right. So I don't care about the negative people. Everyone knows, it's the negative people. Nah, that doesn't bother me. That's just jealousy. That's every aspect of life. I think it's the people who ruin the value of the animals because it's like a person who starts a nutrition company and realizes it's not so easy to sell protein powders if no one knows who you are and you don't really have anything special to offer. So they just whore out all the protein, all the powder. You know what? I have 10,000 units left. I'll just sell it at like half of what I paid for it. Well, guess what? All the people buying your product, which there'll be a lot of them buying it because they'll say, holy shit, look how cheap this is. Now they're not buying my product line. So you've ruined my sales for the next 6 months until you liquidate your inventory that you should never have done, So it happens in snake breeding too, unfortunately. A project that's really got tremendous potential and someone says, you know what, I'm just getting out of this. I don't care. I'll just give away the animals essentially for almost nothing. And now how can you go sell an animal for $3,000 when someone just sold it for, $800,
Right. Absolutely. All right. Number 8, what other species do you keep and why?
I'm really into carpet. I'm obsessed with producing a solid white carpet python. They've done it in Australia. It's called a moonglow. No one's done it here in the U.S. I've gotten as far as a snow. I produced a snow. There is an outside chance I could produce a moonglow this year, which would be a first in the U.S. So I'm obsessed with that. And I love carpets. They got a great personality. They're almost like very similar to Boas, except they're more arboreal and they're cool. So I really like them. I have blue-tongued skinks. I have absolutely no success with them. I can't even get them to eat. Everyone's like, oh, they eat like crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't killed anything yet, but they're not going to breed for me, and they're just not doing that well. And I've changed setups, and I've had them with lights now, UV lights, and I don't know. They're just. I haven't really mastered that yet, so it's a little frustrating for me, but and I have olive pythons from Australia, which I love, and I can't get them to breed either. So, just when you think, look at this guy, he's such a successful breeder. Well, you know what? No, I'm not successful at everything I do. There's a learning curve in everything, and sometimes if you try to be an expert in too many things, you fail. So, I'm working on those 2 projects. I'd like to try to master the blue-tongued skink and master the olive python. Other than that, everything else is pretty cool. And I actually have some tortoises. I have some albino sulcata tortoises that I'm growing up. They're little babies. And I have a bunch of water turtles. I have some albino red-eared sliders. I have some albino pink belly side neck turtles. And Tom Crutchfield produced these really cool Timor snake neck turtles. They're like almost solid black.
Whoa.
He's, I think, one of the only people that produced them in captivity. So I'm really good friends with Tom. Tom used to be into the bodybuilding world. I don't know if you knew that. And,
yeah.
Ironically, I went to Tom's house. He invited me out there. And I pull up, and my wife says, "That guy looks familiar to me." And he's like, I think I know you. They trained at the same gym together. Like when Tom had been, I guess, on probation, he couldn't have reptiles for a while. He lived in Fort Myers. Yeah. And that's ironic. They knew each other from the gym, which is kind of weird, but one of those meaningful coincidences, I guess. But yeah, anyway, I'm into kind of like weird turtles and stuff like that. I haven't really bred them, just kind of collect them, you know.
All right, number 9. What's a common misconception about you?
I guess you'd have to ask other people. I don't listen to the good opinion of others. I don't know. I don't know what people think about me or don't think about me. You tell me, what do people think about me? Maybe I'll tell you it's wrong.
Well, I think a lot of guys might be intimidated because obviously your former profession within the world of bodybuilding, thinking that maybe you were kind of a rough and gruff guy, but
oh yeah,
you know,
most
people that
right.
know you tend to say that you're about the nicest guy that's out there. So.
Yeah, I was always the gentle giant. Yeah, I have an intimidating look about me, especially when I was bigger, I think, and people were very afraid to come up to me. And they told me this later after I became friends with them. But I'm sorry, I'll talk forever. Just like I said, oh yeah, well, let's do a short interview, and now we're probably going on an hour and a half. I'm just a very personable person. I'm definitely a people person. And I think, like I said, sometimes you could look intimidating and people will be afraid to approach you. But, once they get to know you. And I think that's what's great about social media, because it gives me the ability to communicate with people and say, oh, this guy is pretty cool. I have people who buy snakes from me and I'll get on the phone with them. They're like, oh, shit, I've been a bodybuilding fan of yours for like 10 years. And I can't believe how cool you called me up. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're buying a snake. I'd love to answer your questions. And so people respect that. I think they
absolutely.
Because you know what, my philosophy in life is I ain't better than no one. My father was an English teacher. He wouldn't like the way I said that, but I said it purposely like that. I ain't better than no one. I'm the same as everyone else. We're all the same. Anyone who thinks that they're better than someone else has got something freaking wrong with them. So once you have that mindset, people relate to you better because of that, because they pick up the fact that you're not condescending to them. You don't think you're better. Because there's a lot of snake breeders that dismiss people all the time. Oh, I'm not going to deal with that. Person wants a $100 snake. You know what? I spend more time on the phone and texting with people who want $50 snakes from me than with the people who want the $3,000 snake.
Right.
Because I believe that you should give equal time to everyone. Just because they can't afford to buy an expensive snake from you, you don't know what they might buy 5 years from you.
Absolutely.
5 years down the road from you. So I'm nice to everyone because I think that everyone starts. I remember when I was that kid asking a million questions with $10 in my wallet. So, I can relate to that,
Awesome, man. Number 10, what makes you say, what was I thinking when you look back at your time in the hobby?
Nothing. I think that, I've made some stupid mistakes. Like I said, I did the red ball python project, but you know what? I look at the, everything that I've ever invested in or bought into as a gamble anyway. It's like playing the stock market.
Right.
Because you know what? You could buy a $10,000 snake and it could die in 6 months and you never even breed it.
Absolutely.
I've lost some expensive snakes that have died at me. I'm like,
same.
I'm embarrassed to even admit it, but it hurt when I lost them. But it is what it is. It's part of the It's part of the hobby. If you think your snakes are all gonna live forever, and you're gonna get a million clutches out of it, you're crazy. Yeah. Snakes die. Animals die just for no reason. Carpet pythons. No one talks about this. A couple people do, but they get tumors a lot. I don't know why. I didn't know this. I lost like 2 snakes to tumors. I brought them to the vet. They had to remove them. And then all of a sudden I heard a couple people talking about them saying, yeah, I lost a couple snakes also. So snakes die. I mean,
yep.
It happens all the time. And for no reason. It's not because your husbandry is bad. Because I've had snakes have respiratory tract infections. I've treated them. They were fine. I've had snakes have respiratory tract infection and just die for no reason. I don't know why. Who knows? It just happens. Anyway, and you know what? breeders hate to talk about that. Oh, I don't have any respiratory. I never get a respiratory tract infection. Well, then you know what? You're a fucking liar because everyone gets a respiratory tract infection out there.
All right, number 11. What's one tip you would give to people looking to invest in boas and in reptiles?
Buy what you really want. Don't buy what you think you can afford. That's important because these animals are going to be with you a long time. So don't just say, you know what, I got to have a snake. I'm just going to buy anything, because you wouldn't go to a computer store and buy a computer from 2010 because it's affordable, right? Because you're buying old technology. So if you like something, okay, get what you want. You're better off buying less animals but having what you really want, because then you can make cool stuff with it, okay? People, I see it all the time. You know, believe it or not, since this quarantine came around, you know, I'm always producing normal ball pythons. They just pop up. You know, I just don't hit the odds or something like that. And I'm always like, oh, what am I going to do with these things? Because the shipping is almost more expensive than what I'm charging for them, right?
Yeah.
I sell them all the time. I sell a ton of them, especially during the quarantine, because people don't have a lot of money, and they're like, well, I can afford a $50 snake. So, and that's fine. If you want a pet, that's fine. But if you're looking to breed, don't just buy, you know, cheap stuff. Save your pennies, you know, for what you really want. If you really want to get a clown, okay, if you want to get into the clown project, then buy some het clown stuff. You know, don't say, well, you know what, I can't really afford clown stuff, so I'll just buy, you know, a hypo or something like that.
Right.
Because you're gonna hate the animal, and you're not gonna want to, you know, breed it. Same thing with boas. Don't just buy, you know, a het this or het that. If you want to get into, you know, bloods, then buy, you know, het bloods, you know, or buy a blood. Save your money and get a visual blood. I always say it's always nice to have one visual animal in a pair, because this way at least you know everything you produce will be at least 100% het. It's worth it waiting 6 months to get what you really want. There's enough out there now where you're not going to lose out on an animal, you know. I bought a lot of good stuff right from the beginning. And look, I could have afforded to buy way more than I did, but you know what? You have to have some semblance of like, all right, I can't spend all my money on snakes, you know. So I said, what do I really want? Okay, I really wanted that labyrinth pair I told you about. Jeff was charging a lot of money on it. So I said, okay, I'm only going to allow myself to spend this much per you know, month on this animals. And I said, Jeff, can I pay you off over 3 months? I could have paid him right up front, but I knew if I did that, I would go out and buy something else. And then, you know, so you got to budget yourself, but at the same time, get what you want, because then you'll be more enthusiastic about breeding it.
Absolutely, man. All right, man. Number 12, the final one. Any shout outs you want to throw out there?
So like other people?
Yeah.
I think I gave a lot of shout outs. I gave a lot of credit to Vin Russo. I think he's got if you're into boas, you got to buy his book, the new or the more complete boa constrictor. I think he did a wonderful job with the book. You know, he's got a really good feel for the boa industry. He's been in it. He's been immersed in it his whole life. I mean, he's a guy that you want to, you know, you might not do things exactly the way he does, but he's a guy who does things right. You know, I think Mike Weitzman over at, you know, basically Boas.
Yep.
Has got a great collection of stuff too, and he's very, you know, if you want good quality animals, he's got them. And so I want to give those guys a shout out because they've helped me along the way. Jeremy Stone too. Jeremy and I, you know, talked on the phone a lot. You know, I bought a bunch of fire stuff from him, but you know, we talked on the phone, and probably one of the people I got to tell you who I didn't even mention him, and I should have. I could probably do a whole show about him. Peter Call.
Oh yeah.
Pete Call. A friend of mine was going down and buying some ball pythons from him, and I guess Pete had gotten wind that I got into snake breeding, and he's a big bodybuilding fan.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And he told my friend, "Tell Dave anytime he wants to come down." So my wife, when we just started dating, we drove down to Maryland when I was living in New York to his place, and when I got there, we didn't even talk about snakes for the first 3 hours I was there. He was riding bikes, and we were eating in his house, and he was drinking, and he invited me to stay over. He didn't even have even met me. He was like, "Stay the night." I'm like, "Nah, Peter can't." So we went over to his facility, and he's like, he doesn't let anyone videotape.
Oh yeah.
He never gets on camera. I'm the only person I think that he ever did a video with, and he was showing me. I didn't even know what I was doing back then. I just got into it, And if you can watch that video on Muscle Serpents, it's got probably the most hits of any video I did, because Pete is such an elusive guy. He's a pioneer. This guy is a boa genius. He's a snake genius. He's like a prodigy, you know. And he's the nicest guy. And to this day, I still text with him all the time. And he's just a super nice guy. And he's the guy who put, you know, the albino boa into the boa world, really. I mean, he's the first guy who bred him and got him out there. And
oh yeah,
he did some great stuff with it. So yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to him as well.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, that wraps it up for today. Dave, tell the people out there where they can see your animals and learn more about you.
Absolutely. You can go to Palumbo's Pythons Instagram or my Palumbo's Pythons and Boas Facebook page. Or you could check out Muscle Serpents University YouTube channel. That's my YouTube channel. Of course, if you want to check out any bodybuilding stuff, I do rxmuscle.com and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. I make myself, you can call me. My phone number is all over everything. You can email me at huge285@aol.com. It's the same email I've had since 1994. And my phone number is the same phone number since I had since 1994 or 92, whenever cell phones came out. So,
that's awesome.
You know, I'm a pretty open book. You can, people know that. You can contact me, ask questions, whatever. I'm really open, you know, to answering any of your questions.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening. We are out. Guys, that was a great episode. Thanks to Dave Palumbo of Palumbo's Pythons and Boas. Join us for our next episode when we talk to Chad Schillens of Low Key Boas. We're going to talk about his work with the Spectre gene. We're also going to talk about his life in the NFL and what it was like building a collection while working a job that had him constantly traveling. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Do us a favor. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube. Until next time, grow 'em slow.